I'd like to introduce Julie Lockwood, who is also a manager from St Columba's Nursery this time.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. As you're aware, I'm a manager at St Columba's, and I wanted to speak to you this afternoon a little bit about the emotional journey that myself and my staff have been on with regard to the collaborative inquiry. It's actually been quite an eye-opener for a lot of us, far more deeply felt than we imagined. It all began with a meeting where we were asked to think about what matters to us and what drives us, and that made me stop and think, why do I do certain things in my life? Why do I behave the way I do in my work? And I knew that I'm somebody who likes to push people forward, support them, nurture them, and wants them to succeed. And I then thought about my childhood and realised that having failed the 11 plus, that had been a huge, huge impact on me. And nobody had told me at the age of 10, I was just over 10, I was an August birthday, so nobody had told me, well, don't worry, you've only missed by 1 mark, and if you'd been born a year before or after, you know, everything would have been fine, you'd have passed. And don't worry, you'll sort yourself out when you're older, because you'll be able to be given the opportunity to take exams. I just saw it as, that's it now, I'm off to the secondary modern, and my life is over. And the career I want in the future is not going to be for me. So it pushed me. It probably did me the world of good when I think about it now, but at the time it left a huge, huge emotional rift inside me. So when I had got over my tears and feeling quite sad at the very thought of this, I also thought of the other part, the nurturing, and realised that motherhood had passed me by, so a big thing there. I've never had children, yet I'm really passionate about looking after them and being involved in their education and care. So when I had the opportunity to get involved with the collaborative inquiry, you can imagine how excited I was. And straight away, you know, I was in there wanting to get my staff involved. So what happened was, we decided we would look at what really matters to us as a staff. Now, as a staff, obviously, we all tend to say the best possible learning experience for children is one of the big things for all of us. We want to make that difference. But if we don't have the confidence, how can we drive things forward? So that was a biggie. How can we form that level of trust? Now, in my nursery, we have a very strong team. Team spirit and, if you like, belonging to a family is really, really important, and you can probably see now why. Now I've given you that little bit of background about me. And it was very much about having that confidence and trust to be able to be honest with one another. And it's taken some time to build that. And we now have a phrase that we use in our nursery. We say, you can be as manky as you like, as long as you're polite about it. And that's really important. And I have to say, we're still not absolutely there, but we have begun the journey, and there's more chance now that I hear voices from the staff rather than me just speaking at staff meetings. Well, the next thing was, of course, giving them the skills, and training has been a big part of our lives. And we've become a bit like a training nursery with lots of colleges involved with us sending students, and I know there's some colleagues here from a few of those colleges. And that, again, made us realise we have to be good role models to those students. So we need the right people, the right skills, and the right talent. And we don't want to lose that talent. We don't want to lose that knowledge, because it's important that we embrace it and give it an opportunity to shine. So the things that concern me, well, obviously I'm concerned that perhaps we don't get the recognition and appreciation that we should have because of all the work that we do. And it's not perhaps seen or noticed by the outside world, and people have perhaps a different stereotypical idea about what we do. And obviously there's challenges. We don't have the same terms and conditions, we don't have the same pay structure, but we have the same commitment, we have the same dedication, we have the same drive to do the best for the children in our care. So here are some of my staff, and this is where we got together for a meeting, and then we moved it on to a training session for leadership and management, because I was very conscious that all staff have to manage something, whether it be children, time, which is one of our biggest enemies, and obviously it was important that we all got together. I sat down after this and thought about how many hours we actually get this opportunity. Because in a private nursery it's very difficult. It's not like a school. We have to have our meetings after work, even though some of the staff perhaps have rotas where they just work in the mornings. They have to come back at 6 o'clock to start a meeting. And we have 1.5 hours once a month. And if we take 2 months out for parents' evenings, I worked out we get 15 hours a year to meet, to discuss everything we need to discuss. Well, no wonder we can't cascade information from training courses that might be a 2-day training course. We haven't got the time. So it's what can we do about it? Well, the collaborative inquiry made us stop and think. And we wanted the students to come on board as well. So I actually had a student meeting. The staff said to me, right, you meet with us, we call them staff meetings. You meet with the office staff, you call them office meetings. Why don't you have a student meeting? So they were coming up with ideas. And we wanted everybody on board, and now we're ready to begin. Well, there was a flurry of action plans being written, which absolutely amazed me. And one of my staff, who's the EYPS, she's looking after the care, learning and development of the children, and she worked with the room leader in the other room. And they together decided to look at speaking and language because that's one of our focused improvement plan areas, and they knew that there's a lot of children that are requiring support. So they put a lot of time and effort into producing the action plan. And I'm sorry I won't have time to read it all now because I'm conscious of time, but it is on the display. I'm sure you perhaps noticed, some of you, in the rotunda. And obviously they developed various ways of looking at how they could get the information. Well, all of a sudden, I had Louise saying, Emma, it's not a problem. I can pull out the ECAP material, Every Child a Talker material. I can pull out the building blocks for communication material. And what was fantastic for me was seeing that they were using materials that they got on courses now for a meaning, now for a purpose. It was real. Here we have them retelling a story, and obviously we had a little boy who was having difficulty with language, so we used his interest. Mum brought in a book from home, and all of a sudden we were hearing words we hadn't heard him pronounce ever before. The next thing that happened was I gave my office up, and the staff were in there at my laptop looking at flip camcorder work that they had taken of different children that they'd identified as needing support, and that was a magic moment for me to see them doing that. And they weren't just talking about what they were hearing the children say, they were actually saying, oh, look at me there, look at what I've said, I need to improve that. So now they're looking at their own practice as well. And obviously, it's important that we bring parents on board, and we were fortunate enough to have a parent who was also a student on placement. And we said to her, do you feel brave enough to be videoed working with your child, because we want you to engage in conversation with him, because he's not doing obviously what you're telling us, he's doing at home. So if you can bring in anything you like to help make that happen, bring it in. And she said, yes, I'll do it, which was absolutely wonderful. So for the first time, we videoed the parent with the child, and we're now at the stage, as Sue, my deputy, who is the Senko was referring to earlier, we're now at the stage where she's ready to sit down with that mum and look at the actual video footage, and then there's a proper informed discussion that can take place from the evidence they can see. Now obviously we mentioned the focused improvement plan, and I was busy typing things away, as you do as a manager, behind the scenes, and then I suddenly thought, hang on a minute, how dare I? I'm not the one that should be writing up the impact, it should be the staff. So I said to the staff, right, you two, can you perhaps write for me? I'm going to give you, in rough, my copy, and I want you to write down what impact you feel this has all made. And they set to and got started on it. And again, you can have a look at the comments they've made. It's all in the display area. So for me, again, I was having magic moment after magic moment. They talk about children and every moment counts. It was actually counting for me. The next couple of staff was obviously, although we had all staff involved in writing their action plans, it would take too long to go into all of them, but another pair that decided to focus on another area that was our focused improvement plan was Nikki and Wendy, and they were looking at behaviour through social skills, and obviously they came up with various things as well. Now, what happened was they were pulling out all sorts of things from the internet. They were looking at the book that we have pinned up in the room on tricky behaviours. And then one of the staff said, hang on a minute, I think I know where there's a fantastic book sitting on the shelf in the staff room that would just be your answer. And I have to say, if you haven't got a copy of this, well, to me it's just been like gold, because it's easy reading and it's given them a really fantastic start to looking at this area. And so they started reading it, saw there was a screening schedule, and put it into action. And that's what they've been doing. And they've been able to monitor and look at the changes that the children have shown whilst they've been doing the work and the planned activities. So if you again would like to look more at that, and I can actually, if anybody wants to have a look at this book later, please come and see me. It's called Intervening Early, Promoting Positive Behaviour in Young Children. And it's a fantastic book, as I say. Obviously, there's a cycle to this, and the reflecting, reviewing and amending is all part of it. And the staff have been very busy doing that. And it's fantastic that it's all coming from them. I'm not having to say, you need to do this next. They just know it instinctively because they've taken ownership of what they're doing, and it's for a real reason, because they can see that what they're doing is having a huge impact on those children, and they are making that difference. Here you can see the tea party that actually resulted after we'd had all these sort of party outside for the wedding of Prince William and Kate, and the children were talking about Buckingham Palace and what they use there, and a conversation took place about using cups and saucers. So we brought out some fine china, and away we went, and the children absolutely, well, they just loved it, because suddenly they were using the real thing. They weren't using the plastic containers that we give them, and you can see they had a really, really good time. I'm not sure whether it was cucumber or not on the sandwiches. It looks a bit like it. And you can see that turn taking, you know, again, it's all part of being able to cooperate with each other. And these two children are in a non-verbal communication kind of action here, because at the moment their speech is delayed. So again, it was helpful to the other parent to get feedback on that. And here you can see them working together, and yet they're having to be independent at the same time. And they were making, as it says here, a bowl of fruit salad, which in the video clip, if we'd had it here, you'd have seen them eating. And then again, I asked the same question. Would you feel comfortable? Do you feel you can write down for me the impact that all your work has made? And they began. And this has come from them, not from me, which is just wonderful. So what difference has this collaborative inquiry made? Well, obviously, as you can see, it's made a huge, huge impact on myself, my staff, the children, and the way that we work with parents. So we're sharing the information that we've had from training, things that probably were there all the time, but we hadn't pulled together as we should have done. So now, more innovative ways of working, and especially as the way we're working now with parents. We're going to be using that camcorder a lot more, and it was lovely that somebody made reference to perhaps the importance of that. And I'll tell you what, if I could give one to everybody in every room, you know, I think we'd learn a heck of a lot more, and obviously give them some time to analyse and look at it. And obviously, it's all about feeling valued and taking ownership, as I've mentioned, and then seeing the outcomes of everything we do. So, hopefully you've grasped a little bit today of all the difference it's making at St Columba's Church Nursery, and I'm available if you want to speak to me later about any of the things we're doing, or please feel free to have a look at the notice board. And I know that after lunch there's going to be a video from one of our parents who came to us, Josephine, who's with us in the audience, and maybe later at the end of the conference, if she's able to stay a little bit, she's very happy to take any questions you might have of her. Thank you very much.
I was wondering if does anybody want to ask Julie a question now?
I'm very struck by the way that your involvement has such obviously had a good to some of the staff embracing this approach. And I'm very aware that some people maybe sitting in the my manager won't go along or won't be as enthusiastic for yourself. Have you any advice on that? I know it's difficult because you've got
Yes. Well, I'm very keen to network because that's been what I've found has been the greatest, if you like, benefit to any kind of success that you might ever want to create, whether it be with your staff or other colleagues or, as you say, other managers. And I know that the local education authority has had meetings in the past, and I think Joanne is here with us now, who would say yes, and in fact she very kindly made reference the other day to it, that we're going to start up those meetings again, because, like you say, sharing that information and passing that energy and enthusiasm on, is going to make a difference. Sometimes it's just lack of confidence or not knowing where to begin, and perhaps giving other people an idea of what they can do, because they're very capable and they have the abilities. It's just thinking outside the box.
I just wanted to say that one of the things that came across to me, Catherine, in your presentation, Julie, and also in Karen's, was the nature of the kind of shift in the nature of collaboration at every level in the setting.
Yes.
And I was going to ask Catherine, is that the same experience for you? Because you also, as in your position, so is this something that's happening, these experiences are kind of linking together maybe?
Yeah, I think in my setting, I suppose a lot of it is because I obviously, like Julie's, probably attend all kinds of training courses and stuff, and then like Julie as well, you go back and you think, oh, I must tell Matt doing that. But the advantage of this, that Andrew sitting very quietly over there in the audience, is actually the team leader in one of the rooms at our nursery, and Angie's been very actively involved in this process with me, and Sarah, the manager, as well. I think the main things that have come out of it is, I suppose we're focusing mainly on Angie at the moment because she's been part of it, but it's really empowering Angie and making her realise what a brilliant practitioner she is, but somehow she doesn't quite believe it herself. But watching someone develop, when they're with the children and developing, I've always seen that side of Angie and how she's so insightful, she knows the child inside out. She's always was collaborative with the team in the nursery, but seeing her as part of the collaborative inquiry and seeing the way she's grown in confidence through that as well, it's been a change in mindset, hasn't it, really? The way we approach how we work within the setting, and also reinvigorating the passion and the reason, because Angie and I have both been in childcare for over 20, 30 years. It's been the opportunity to reinvigorate that passion again and really say, why are we doing this, and what are our values? And by asking those questions of the staff, I've learned an awful lot more about actually what makes them tick and what motivates them. And that certainly has helped us when we're looking at the children and where they're coming from. And definitely what that moment by moment is so crucial. And for us not to let it just go by, that we have to really focus on it and get to know our children intimately to be able to do that.
I think just following on from your question about managers, I've always said it's really important that practitioners also get the opportunity to share and look at the ways that other places do things, because if you have somebody perhaps shadowing or being there, it does make that difference. And I've said for a long time it would be wonderful if we could say to various people, would you like to go for a couple of weeks to another nursery, and we'll get one of their practitioners to come to us. So the only cost will be the difference in bus fare or whatever mode of transport you use. It's not going to be highly expensive, and yet the learning experience and the actual information they're going to come back with is going to be immense. Because I have a lot of practitioners in my nursery where they've never actually I'll say taught because we do teach. They haven't been in any other nursery, so their only knowledge is where they're working now. And we need to widen, and get more experiences, and I think we'll develop further as a result of it. So, if there's anybody out there who'd like to consider it, I'm quite sure we can have a conversation. Thank you.
Thanks.